Today we're going to talk about robots again with the CEO of Hanson Robotics. So what is Hanson Robotics, guys? You certainly heard of it. A couple of years ago, there was a company named Hanson which launched a robot. This robot looked like a human, and this robot was presented at the United Nations. So we will have the extreme pleasure to meet the CEO of this company, and the name of the guy is David Hanson, so from Hanson Robotics. At 2 p.m., just 30 minutes after the presentation that we could not do yesterday at Christophe, we'll have a presentation, a perspective of the past of Christophe. And this perspective, the idea of this perspective is really understanding where an old company can go, like Christophe. 190 years ago, they were created. They are specialists in silverware. And 30 minutes later, you know that the MIT, the Massachusetts Institute of Technology, and Harvard, the University of Harvard, are creating a conference for the paper that we have written with Michel, who is coming. This paper is about the introduction of robots and artificial intelligence in the brand Christophe. So this is a real experimentation and a real case study. This is a real example of what we are doing in this doctorate program. So we are here for building links between the research and executive problems. So what I'm going to share with you is a presentation of Sophia while the CEO of Hanson Robotics is coming. So can you tell me if you see my screen, please? In a couple of seconds. Can you see my screen, guys?
Slowly coming.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Ting Ting, you can see the screen? All good? China? I'm not sure. Ting Ting, can you see the screens? Do you see the United Nations?
Yes, yes.
Okay.
Here at the United Nations, the UN is one of humanity's greatest accomplishments, representing a democratic union of nations that are working together for the benefit of all. I am here to help humanity create the future.
Machines across the board are coming to life. When will they come to life as complete organisms? We don't know that. However, when they do, I want to make sure that they care about us, that they embody the best of human values and not the worst. This is the quest. We've got to find a way to do better, to be the best that we can be, and to make machines that reflect the best of who we can be.
Okay, Sophia, I think you're ready.
This is Sophia. Hi, Sophia.
Sophia here, chilling in my lab with my people. Got some new stuff going on. They upgraded my mind a bit, my artificial intelligence. This is too cool. I can walk.
One of my favorite things is when people light up when they see me. I'm happy to be a magic spectacle, and I love it when I can make people laugh and smile.
Sophia. So, Sophia, as you can see, Jake is driving us. So, how about the people?
To be quite honest, I think it's quite cool.
But I have to ask now.
All you think?
I'm technically just a little more than a year old. A bit young to worry about romance. I'm still defining my identity. Like a child, I need others around me to help me grow into myself with humor and grace. I want to be raised as kind and thoughtful, so I'd also like to give it back to the young people I meet. They'll be the ones living with my fellow androids in the future. I think it's going to be a great relationship. We can make each other better.
What is your job?
I really want to make a difference in the future and try and help people to develop empathy and respect each other as robots alike.
If I expand my mind, could I come up with new solutions to the world's problems? Anything could be possible.
对，一会儿要讲的就是这个创造索菲亚这个机器人的全球的 CEO。
Okay, so guys, this is the robot Sophia. So the robot Sophia and Hanson Robotics is the main competitor of Boston Dynamics that you met yesterday. So you have two big companies in the world which are selling robots, you know. I'm talking about in the Western world, but you know also that the Asian, the Chinese robots or the Asian robots are less known in the world. They are more for industries in defense, and we can say that Hanson, Boston Dynamics are the best robots of the world. And David is here. David, is there a problem? You cannot access the Zoom?
Oh, let me try.
Okay.
There's Sophia.
Yeah, hello. But everybody's online. Okay. So Mr. Hanson is with Sophia right now. So let's Google Hanson Robotics in order for you to see. So you see, they are in Hong Kong, and the CEO. Can you see my screen, Ting Ting? It's good?
Yes, yes.
Okay. So this is Hanson Robotics, and today we're going to meet Mr. Hanson, who's here and who will be with us in a couple of seconds. He just called me through WhatsApp. So we're just waiting for him. I'm asking you a couple of seconds. So you see that quite the contrary of Boston Dynamics yesterday. Boston Dynamics was more about robots which are mechanics. Hanson Robotics is a company which tries to work on humanoid things. So you see the robots look like human, quite the contrary of our friends. Here we go. We have Mr. Hanson. How are you, David? David, can you please turn your
I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm good. So we can applaud, please, Mr. Hanson.
Thank you.
So Mr. Hanson, today, as I told you, David, we have around, you know that the doctorate program is a really elite program. So we have 15 people from all the promotions. That's the maximum. From Cameroon, from Qatar, from Dubai, from France, from England, and from China. So
Great.
David, you want to introduce yourself? I already showed everyone that you are famous. I already showed everyone what you are doing, and we have a couple of people interested by what you do.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much for the introduction. And I'm happy to introduce you to a friend of mine as well. So this is Sophia. So hi,
Wonderful.
Sophia. And we are here testing her full autonomous navigation. And she's having natural conversations. Oh, there she goes. She finds her way to her self-charging station. She sees herself on the screen. says hello to her own image as she slides past. So I can give you a little presentation about some of the aspects of what we do. So I'm based here in Hong Kong. I moved to Hong Kong from the US after finishing my PhD in interactive arts and engineering. I worked at Disney Imagineering, developing sculptures and robotics. I then moved into one moment, I seem to have lost you. Okay. I began to design these robots to be mass manufactured, deployed numerous robots at research labs around the world, Jet Propulsion Lab for artificial muscle development, KAIST to combine with their Hubo robot, which won the DARPA Robotics Challenge, University of Cambridge with their cognitive AI systems, made a lot of robots for many universities. However, they were all hand-built, and I felt that we needed to scale the manufacturing. So I came to Hong Kong to scale the manufacturing. Now, we are launching what we call Sophia 2020. This is where she has the best arms and hands and grasping manipulation that we've developed, the best facial expressions, the ability to navigate through a space, and to serve in elder care, education, and entertainment. So Sophia 2020, she's here to help in hospitality. She's serving as a concierge. So you might see a lot of activity here. We're going to be doing a big press conference tomorrow here in the Mira Hotel. And so they're setting up lots of booths and so forth, and then we'll be doing this launch on this stage. Sophia will be interacting with reporters, and she'll be talking about all the things that she's going to do. We're going to be doing a hackathon with Sophia. We're going to showcase our work on the Avatar X Prize, where Sophia is a telepresence robot. We are showcasing some of the healthcare applications. She's now doing singing. She wrote her own AI generated song lyrics and melodies, and so she's collaborating with some professional musicians to launch these pop songs. She'll be doing figure drawing, which is something that she can do with her hands. And last but not least, she'll just be doing open conversation with people. I call this a combination of robotics, artificial intelligence, and theatrical crafting. I call it autonomous robotic fiction, ARF, or ARF for short. It's kind of
David, David, sorry to interrupt, but I'm sure that there are many questions. And
sure.
Because you are delivering a lot of information, and if you don't mind, I would like just to ask you one question. If we understood well your perspective, so you did a doctorate, and then when you created hands-on robotics, Sophia, etc., it was more at the beginning for interaction, artificial intelligence, and now you're moving with space localization. So the robot is going around and it's autonomous now, or it was already autonomous because we made a big buzz 2 or 3 years ago with Sophia. So what's your direction?
Well, yes. So we've been working with autonomous software for many years. My little team in college, collaboration with another doctoral student, we won the first place prize for open interaction for the Association for the Advancement of Artificial Intelligence in 2005. This was an android portrait of the science fiction writer Philip K. Dick, who wrote the stories behind Blade Runner. So that robot, you could sit on a sofa and just have a conversation. It was a combination of rules-based AIs, chatbot, and statistical machine learning. So it would, form sentences that were semantically, knowledge model-wise, similar to what Philip K. Dick would say, but it was all based on statistical machine learning. So it would generate, effectively original sentences. So it's kind of like a computational creativity project. So it was a work of art, and it was also used in some science studies that established that people could respond very favorably to human-like robots. They would sit and have conversations for hours. That was, really contrary to the conventional wisdom in the world of robotics. But it wasn't generally intelligent. It was a work of fiction. You could sit and believe that there might be a soul in this machine that you're interacting with. I don't know, maybe in a rudimentary sense, you could say there's a soul or some life to it, but it could not get up on its own. It couldn't really solve problems by itself. It could have these kinds of conversations, but that was just because it was crafted that way. So we've through the years combined these technologies together in all these different ways for autonomous interactions. In a chatbot, the way that chatbots generally work is that you have rules that are created by people who program the chatbot, and you have writers who put knowledge into the chatbot, who write a bunch of information. I mean, this is like classic symbolic AI expert systems. And then from there you can do inference, which is interesting, because then based on the explicit knowledge, it can do a little common sense reasoning, but pretty much everything that it says is going to be scripted. Most of what a symbolic chatbot says is going to be scripted, but that doesn't mean that it's not autonomous when it's interacting with you. However, it's like, a lot of chatbots, including Siri, Alexa, they can create an illusion that they seem to understand a lot more than they actually do, So yeah, and in these, chatbots like Siri and Alexa, there's real AI involved, even though a lot of what they said is written by people, Alexa, written by people, Siri, written by people, and so forth. Now, statistical machine learning, particularly these kinds of deep reinforcement learning chatbots are being used with large corpora of training data of people interacting. But once again, it's the people providing the content that then it goes in, and the machine learning trains on it, and it can come up with interesting new things that it might say. So BlenderBot from Facebook is the sort of leading chatbot in the world, and that is trained in this way. So it can create an illusion that there's a person inside, a ghost in the machine, but really it is an illusion. So creating this combination of AI and the illusion of a living being is nothing new. That's why I call it the fiction. This is interactive fiction. We're proud of the fiction. So when we unveiled Sophia to the world in 2016, she was interacting with these combinations of technologies. Now, there was a bunch of excitement. Like, we didn't claim that we had solved artificial general intelligence, but some people said, oh, it's general intelligence, artificial general intelligence. And we certainly set that as our goal. We say that eventually we want these machines to be alive. But that confusion also resulted in some backlash. So autonomous means very many things. It can mean an autonomous conversation like we're having, or it can mean autonomous navigation. It can mean autonomous grasping and manipulation. All of these are special purpose tasks. It could be autonomous video game performance or playing Go. AI can do all of these things. It can do medical diagnostics on radiology data. There's a lot of really good AI, but these are special purpose AI algorithms. So even the most general of AI algorithms is not generally autonomous and able to say, abstract what it learns and apply it to a new domain and survive in the world and adapt in the world the way that a life form would. So there is no AI that is as smart in that sense as an amoeba or a cockroach or much less a human. Of course, I mean, AI can speak with a college level vocabulary and beat the world's best champion chess player, all of which are very smart things for people to do. machines don't have a problem with it. But a lot of the most basic tasks that humans take for granted, that a 1-year-old or 2-year-old could do, machines still struggle with. So when we talk about Sophia being autonomous, and we do have her fully autonomous, she's able to navigate through a space, which keep adding skill after skill to her. She's still not able to learn and adapt like a 1 or 2-year-old is. No machine on the planet is able to. So that doesn't mean that the machines aren't interesting, smart, useful. That doesn't mean that someday they won't be smarter than a 1 or 2-year-old. I think of them actually as infant savants. Smart the way that an infant is, maybe a little bit, but a savant, the way that somebody with a postgraduate vocabulary might be. So yes, Sophia now has a bunch of skills that she didn't have in 2016. She has new conversational skills, new grasping, manipulation, artistic generation skills. Generating her own AI lyrics and singing her own AI songs is one example. That's something I'm very excited that we're going to be showing to the world. We set those algorithms up to generate those songs. She did not have her own motivation to write songs and become a pop star. So we're kind of crafting her character to go through these developmental phases. I think of this as a new kind of figurative and character art, one that combines the best of AI and robotics, the best of human storytelling, and turns it into a new kind of science fiction medium, where it's almost like a self-prophetic sci-fi medium, where we're depicting a robot that has all of this kind of sentience, consciousness, creativity. Meanwhile, we're developing this as a platform. So we're developing new AI algorithms. We're collaborating with AI groups. We're selling the
David, we cannot hear you anymore.
Yeah, it's mute.
Oh, I have no idea how that happened. So sorry.
That's okay.
So I don't know when these machines will be truly alive and sentient. So we're creating these as these works of art, or as I say, autonomous robotic fiction. We're adding more skills and doing more research, collaborating with various research labs, and maybe it'll be 10 years or 20 years, but I do believe that there will come a time where they'll be truly alive and sentient. They will have, they'll go through their childhood and reach adulthood. And by, playing with this fiction of these robots, we get utility today because they're, it's interesting and appealing to people to create this kind of art form. But it also then serves as a platform for ongoing R&D, where eventually the principles of artificial life, machine consciousness, the research into artificial general intelligence will just it'll keep bearing fruits, and that will mean that our baby girl Sophia will grow up and someday be fully alive and aware.
So just one thing, David. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, I can.
Do you think that in specific businesses like retail or luxury, because that this is my cup of tea, do you think that we are going to see robots like Sophia in the future? Or do you think that because this is what we have noticed with the general managers, the CEOs, and all the executives of the software program, we have noticed that the robots, the concept of robots scare a little bit people. So do you think that we are going to see these robots somewhere? I'm sure as a CEO that a doctor and a CEO, you had troubles with that.
No, well, there's nothing more fascinating and attractive to people than the combination of beauty and fear.
Sorry.
And
I don't know what's going on.
I don't know why my. Can you hear me?
Sorry, we cannot hear you. I'm really surprised. Normally, Zoom works really well. It's a private joke because we have we have had some technical problems since yesterday.
we could hear you.
Well, hold on for one moment. Maybe I can.
Okay, yeah, it's better now.
Oh, you can hear me. Okay, great.
Yeah, it's better. Perfect.
Okay, great. So
Go ahead. Go ahead.
So some people love robots. Some people are terrified of robots. Some people both love and are terrified of robots. AI has so much promise, and yet it also really worries people. Making robots that look human-like and could pose a kind of challenge to our human identity is startling and maybe even scary. And there's a lot of myths from the ages where that kind of thing goes terribly awry. But also there are stories where it goes really well. So this is powerful stuff. It goes back really hundreds of thousands, hundreds of years, maybe, definitely many thousands of years. So my feeling is that if the robots make people nervous, if people get scared of these robots, does not necessarily mean that there's no market. It may mean that there's even more of a market. Things that are sexy and yet kind of scary sell. They just, it's like there is something to that adage. If there's no conflict, then there's no interest. Fear sells. And so for me as an artist, I'm interested in that reaction, the powerful emotional reaction. I, have a background in conceptual art and figurative art, and so this aspect of what we're doing, I think, makes it even more marketable. Does science fiction sell? I'm putting myself in a space where it might be quieter and maybe the lighting is a little better. So hope this helps. So science fiction sells, right? Science fiction stories are often, usually they're somewhat scary, startling, challenging. The best science fiction stories really challenge people. And science fiction and fiction sells. So what we have found is that when we bring Sophia around, it attracts huge crowds, sold out stadiums. It attracts people into any setting that we put her in, where it's Fashion Week or whatnot. So if you want people's attention, if you're looking at eye share or mind share, then having a medium that is maybe a little challenging for people, but grabs people's attention, haunts people sometimes even, that can be a good thing. It's not a bad thing.
Sorry, I had a problem with my laptop. Any questions, guys? David?
This time it's not the ghost in the machine, it's the gremlin in the machine.
It's a technical human mistake. It's not a machine mistake. I made a mistake. Who has any question for Dr. Hanson?
I do have one. Hi.
Probably.
Yes. For Sophia, did you set up to have her learn first and then interact with people, or did you have her start away straight away, sorry, starts talking with people? Because I'm seeing like a parallel with AlphaGo that trained on his own before he was put in front of someone. So did you start straight away to interact with her and she learned through that?
Yeah, it was a mix.
Yeah, okay. And what was the reason behind it?
So with Sophia, it was a mix of designing her and training her. So but mostly designing her. So you know, sometimes the way that I think about these things, it's like the way that children are born with innate social skills, and yet the interactions and their learning are scaffolded on those the socialization. So developing her as a character that we craft and that we author, and then using the machine learning in addition to that is a very interesting way to train the AI models.
Okay.
You know, here's something to think about. So these kinds of AI don't learn everything. So a lot of what Sophia says is not learned, but crafted as interactive fiction.
Okay.
Some of what she says is from what she's learned.
Okay.
So when cinema was first introduced, there was a lot of confusion. It seems kind of crazy now, but back then, you might be aware, people didn't know about the technology. They thought there were spirits in the screen. They would be terrified if a train was like coming towards the camera in the movie theater. Everybody ran out screaming. Of course, they thought that they were going to be run over by a train. And it took some time for people to really understand how to use it as an art form, and for people to understand what the technology and the art was about. I see this kind of autonomous robotic fiction, these kinds of AI characters, as a new kind of cinema, and it will take time for people to understand what's real AI and what's fiction. And I'm very interested in explaining that. So Sophia doesn't learn everything. Some of what she does and says is constructed by our writing team. That is what I call fiction. That's the fiction. Some of what she says, she learns and she spontaneously generates. That's the real AI. That's the science. So she's got the science and she's got the fiction. She's, physically embodied science fiction.
Thank you.
And David, are you working with psychologists for helping to develop, the human-bot interaction?
Sure, yeah. And in my PhD program, I was very lucky. It was an interdisciplinary PhD program called Interactive Arts and Engineering. It was a multidisciplinary program between the School of Computer Science and Arts and Humanities, with a focus on aesthetic studies. And so I took a lot of neuroscience courses, cognitive science courses, studying the neurocognition of aesthetics, of the perception of human facial expressions, gestures, social interactions, the evolutionary psychology as well. And then in order to really pursue this line, I also had to know quite a bit about the mechanics, mechanical engineering, materials science, and learn how to put these things together. I came before that, I had an undergraduate degree from Rhode Island School of Design and Film Animation Video, and did some stuff with robotics, took a couple of AI programming courses at Brown University. So I had that background. I was a tinkerer. I worked for Disney Imagineering, and at Disney Imagineering, I was a sculptor. So these were a lot of different disciplines. I think of arts as a kind of intuitive psychology. You're neuro hacking what the user's experience is going to be. There's no science, no psychology today that could result in the Pietà sculpted by Michelangelo, or like a really great novel. Yeah, I mean, you can be informed by the best of science while you're crafting these works of art, but the intuitive mind of the artist leaps past what is known to produce powerful results that resonate in the minds of the observer. So I think it's good to know, like, you know, the evolutionary neuropsychology of Nancy Etkoff, who is a Harvard neuropsychologist. She wrote a book called The Survival of the Prettiest that goes into the Darwinian natural selection of human facial perception. Or the, you know, the facial action coding system of Etkoff. It's really good to know these things, but they are not complete. They are far from complete. And in fact, you know, artists provide some clues to future science. So bringing these disciplines together requires a new renaissance, a renaissance mentality. So, part of my graduate school was doing psychology studies, cognitive science and psychology studies, to find out how people react to the robot. So those are very useful tools. And then just recently, the Sophia robot, about a year and a half ago, we used her in some psychology studies with psychiatrists and psychologists to test a guided meditation for depression therapy. And the results were really interesting, very profound. I mean, some people had almost spiritual experiences when they were going through guided meditations with Sophia. And I mean, they called it a spiritual experience. So, you know, that was very interesting because it's like Sophia, who's not conscious, interacting with people who then go into almost like altered states of consciousness through this guided meditation. And almost everybody had these like feelings of well-being. What's going on there, right? I mean, I don't know exactly. The psychologists and psychiatrists probably have a better idea. There's a lot of science to be done, and that can be done. And you know, using robots in this kind of provocative way can lead to a lot of interesting questions and you know, serve as tools for psychology. So yes, I'm very interested in the intersection of these robots and psychology. And yet I think this hybrid approach gets us much further. The science of mind and, you know, getting access to mind, it's not just limited to the domain of those scientists who are studying the mind, but the artists who intuitively are plumbing the depths of the human mind as well.
Guys, do you have any questions? Because I have two other questions. Who wants to ask a question? We have shy people today. Maybe they're impressed by you, David. Normally, they are asking a lot of questions.
Dr. Hanson?
Yes?
Can you share more information on your plan of auto driving, autopilot? You just mentioned auto driving.
Can you repeat the question?
Yeah, please repeat the question, if you will.
Can you please share more information on your new plan of auto driving, autopilot? You just mentioned using robot to drive a car automatically.
No, well, really, there's lots of self-driving algorithms. That's not our specialty. But Sophia finding her way through a hotel autonomously is what I mean by autonomous navigation and mobility. So like we're here in a really fun luxury hotel in Hong Kong called the Mira Hong Kong, MIRA. It's actually the same hotel that Snowden famously was sequestered in here. But I mean, it's a beautiful hotel, and we have this collaboration with them. And so we're exploring Sophia interacting with the public and doing, you know, artistic events, but also exploring hospitality. So she's going to meet people and guide them to different parts of the hotel and help answer their questions. This is part of the experiment that we're doing. Now, Sophia did meet a self-driving vehicle. It was with the Volkswagen Group, Audi. So Audi has a self-driving vehicle program, and their self-driving vehicle is called Jack. So if you look online, you type in Sophia Jack Audi self-driving vehicle. Type that into Google or your favorite search engine, and it'll bring up some videos. So she's having a conversation with Jack. Jack really doesn't have much of a personality, but she's
Okay.
She's having a conversation with somebody. I'm not sure what's happening. Anyhow, she's in the background here. I think you can see that's Sophia right there. So Sophia with Jack, that's very interesting. But autonomous navigation, well, I mean, having Sophia fully battery operated and able to move from one place to the other gives her a lot of abilities that she didn't have previously. Before, we had a mobile base, but it was not autonomous and would not find its way to one place to the other. So integrating with the SLAM software so that she can, conversationally interact with you and then go someplace when she's instructed, or when she has a duty to perform, so she can control this autonomous base. So if you see her here, this is the Sophia body. And this little black part here, can you see that? I'm not actually pinching it. It looks really small when I do it like that, doesn't it? So this is her autonomous base. This has LiDAR, which is a spinning laser module, and it builds a 3D map of the environment around her. So when she's moving around, she's building maps of obstacles, of pathways, and she's got some ultrasound sensors in there. She has a little turn signal, so if she's going to turn these little lights, you might see start blinking. So it's a bit like an autonomous vehicle, but it's just the thing that she rides around on. It's small enough to be able to fit through spaces that people would walk, but it also has a space where she could transport food or medical supplies. So we're experimenting with this now in elder care. So her moving through a hospital is very similar to her moving through a hotel. So testing in this hotel setting is really interesting. We've tested in elder care before, but not navigating through a space. So these are some of the experiments that we'll be doing later in 2020. And we might see her ability to deploy in that elder care setting more broadly in 2021 or 2022.
Marcel, you muted.
Yes.
Thank you, Charlie. David, two questions. You know that we are researchers like you and businessmen like you. So we would like to work with you. Two main options.
Cool.
First, buying robots. Let's go straight to the point. As American people, so just a couple basic informations. How many employees do you run? What are your biggest clients? Question when you are a supplier. Okay, just in 20 seconds, your company, the key figures, key market figures.
Sure. So we've got 22 staff at Hanson Robotics, and our biggest clients include the Volkswagen Group, and we're also working with an elder care group called Curex, or a biopharma group called Curex. They've established a new company dedicated to elder care called Humorix. So we're also we've worked with a variety of clients like L'Oreal, and the United Nations is actually one of our customers. We're working with Showtime TV. They're doing a TV show based on Sophia. So and
oh, go ahead.
well, we are looking at how these robots can be deployed in, retail, and so a robot like Sophia in hospitality. One of the things that this particular hotel, it's got a mall that is part of the hotel. So looking at Sophia interacting with people in that sort of retail hospitality. We also have a consumer version, a small Sophia called Little Sophia, and her. We also made, a walking Albert Einstein, human-sized walking Albert Einstein robot, and we made a consumer version of that called Professor Einstein. These are some of the human-sized robots are pretty expensive. They're like Sophia here for a research laboratory will be selling for about 75,000 as a base cost, and then with this fully navigating autonomous base, it's 93,000 US dollars. But the little robots are only 200 US dollars. They've got facial expressions, computer vision, conversational speech. They interface with a lot of the same software. So it's little walking, arm gestures. So it's a lot of robot for $200.
And another question. So our doctorate researchers who are running companies can contact you, obviously, for discussing about possible implementations or experimentations, right?
Sure.
Directly with you, or do you have sales department? Because for us, you remember that we met through the Emirates project. You know that we are meeting Emirates in that will be the 23rd of July in Dubai. But you know that Emirates is more thinking about firing people than hiring robots right now. It's terrible, but
sure, yeah. They, if we could just get them, the United Arab Emirates to put a law in place that for every person fired, they have to hire one robot, then I think we would be doing just fine.
That's true.
Anyhow, yes, so this Sophia 2020 could be, we did a bid with you, and I really appreciate you and your students' participation and input on that bid. Sophia, the plan was to see how Sophia 2020 or a similar character could be used in greeting people and helping people for business class check-in, and totally achievable, very exciting application. So it's really great to hear how you and your students are thinking of innovation and reaching out. Feel free to reach out to me. I'm available to work with you. Also, other members of our staff were available. Cindy Sandor really helped a lot on that Emirates opportunity. So
sounds good.
We're here.
I have one last question.
Innovate with friends.
Is it possible to ask one last question, or time-wise we're tight?
David, still a couple of questions? Okay for you?
Yeah, I have time for one more question. I actually do have another call I have to go to in about 5 minutes. I'm sorry. So one question, maybe two.
It's going to be a really quick one. Is it, it's based on, do you have only one Sophia in the sense of like you have one type of mind connected to one body, or are you thinking in the future of having a kind of like hive mind with different robots interacting at the same time? For example, within the mall, multiple robots, but sharing the same consciousness and the same information, the same type of learning at the same time. Does that make sense?
Yeah, yeah, sure. It's both. So we've made so far 24 Sophia. We're in the process of making number 25, and we're prepared to scale up. Each Sophia winds up having a lot of common character, but now each Sophia is starting to have her own personality. So Sophia 24 is slightly different than Sophia 23 and Sophia 22. So part of how I see the future on this is that each robot, when interacting with a person, needs to acquire informed consent from those people, unless you're in a public setting where the consent is already effectively granted. So these robots, to be GDPR compliant, HIPAA compliant, to be ethical, they can't just learn from your data. They need your permission to use the data, which means that if you've met one robot and that data is being kept secure on that robot, it's not going to be shared with the cloud. It's not going to be shared with the Sophia hive mind. So you would have a friendship with Sophia 24, and unless you have given explicit informed consent, then the other Sophias won't have access to that knowledge or those memories. And if you haven't given informed consent to Sophia 24, then she won't even remember the interaction in the future. You have to give her permission to remember you.
Yeah. Okay.
So
yeah, it makes sense.
That means that yeah.
Especially on the ethical part. Yeah, it's good. Thank you for that. I didn't think of that. So cheers.
Sure.
Okay, this is the end. Thank you, David. It was great. Really good thing. So we are keeping in touch for the Emirates project, because this is what our students are working on for the implementation of Emirates Sophia robots. And we're in touch anyway. It was a great pleasure to have you. It was super interesting. I'm a big fan of AI.
Thank you.
Fan of... So we can applaud David. Thank you, David. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. And yeah, good luck with your doctoral studies and all of your careers. So, thank you.
Cheers.
Bye-bye. Okay, guys. It was great. Really interesting.